Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Resilience and tried not to curse. The ship groaned around him like an old man getting out of bed. Warning lights blinked red and yellow across every panel. The air recycler made a noise that sounded like someone strangling a cat. "Captain, the engine is making that sound again," said Engineer Lisa Chen from her station. She was 26 years old with grease under her fingernails and determination in her eyes. "The sound that means we might explode." "Which engine?" Jake asked. "The main one or the backup one that doesn't work?" "The main one that barely works." Jake rubbed his face. 3 months ago, humanity had joined the Galactic Coalition. It was supposed to be the greatest day in human history. Mankind finally had a place among the stars with thousands of alien species. They were no longer alone in the universe. The Coalition had even given humanity a gift to welcome them, a starship of their very own. The UES Resilience was humanity's first vessel capable of traveling between star systems. There was just one problem. The ship was complete garbage. "Sir, the gravity generator is acting up again," called out pilot Marcus Rodriguez from the helm. He was a former Air Force pilot with steady hands and endless patience. Both qualities were needed to fly this disaster. "We're at about 70% normal gravity right now. That's better than yesterday when we floated to the ceiling," said Medical Officer Dr. Amanda Hayes. She was sorting through alien medical supplies that might or might not work on humans. "At least I can perform surgery without everything floating." Away! The bridge looked like someone had taken parts from 10 different ships and welded them together with hope and prayer, which was basically what had happened. The Coalition had given humanity leftover parts from various species. Nothing matched. Nothing worked the way it should. The captain's chair was built for a species with 4 arms. The navigation console was designed for beings with 6 eyes. The weapons controls were labeled in a language that their computer could only translate as aggressive sound and very aggressive sound. "Tyler, any word from Coalition Command?" Jake asked. Communications specialist Tyler Brooks was their youngest, crew member at 22. He spoke 4 alien languages and could fix almost any communication system. "Yes, sir. They want to know why we're 3 days late to our supply run. Tell them our ship is held together with duct tape and good intentions." "I don't think they'll understand that reference, sir." Jake looked out the main view screen. Stars stretched in all directions. Somewhere out there were alien civilizations, thousands of years more advanced than humanity. They had ships that could cross the galaxy in days. They had weapons that could destroy planets. They had technology that seemed like magic, and they had given humanity this flying scrap heap. "Lisa, honest assessment. Will this ship hold together long enough to reach Kepler Station?" Lisa looked up from her engineering console. Her hands were covered in some kind of blue alien oil that smelled like rotten eggs. "Probably. Maybe. I give us 60-40 odds." "Those are better odds than yesterday. Yesterday I gave us 30-70. The truth was that humanity was the joke of the galaxy. When they docked at space stations, other species pointed and laughed. Jake had overheard alien traders taking bets on when the human ship would finally fall apart completely. The Zeltrons gave them 2 months. The Kepler natives said 6 weeks. The Arcturus merchants were betting on catastrophic failure within 10 days. It hurt. Jake had been a Navy captain for 12 years. He had commanded destroyers and aircraft carriers. He knew how to run a tight ship. But this vessel tested every skill he had ever learned. "Captain," said Amanda from her medical station, "I've been thinking about our situation. Please tell me you've figured out how to make this ship work properly." "No, but I've been studying the ship's design. Each system comes from a different species, right? The Zeltrons built the hull. The Kepler natives made the engines. The Arcturus people designed the life support." "Right. Nothing works together." But that's not entirely true. Look at how we've adapted. Marcus learned to fly using 6 different control systems. Tyler can communicate with any species we meet. Lisa has figured out how to make incompatible technologies work together. Jake frowned. What are you getting at, Doc? Maybe the Coalition didn't give us junk by accident. Maybe they gave us a puzzle, a test to see what we could do with limited resources. Or maybe they just wanted to get rid of their garbage, said Marcus from the pilot seat. Lisa stopped working and looked up. Actually, Doc might be onto something. I've been studying the ship's modular design. It's not elegant, but it's flexible. More flexible than most ships I've read about? Flexible how? Well, normal ships are built with one purpose. Military ships fight. Cargo ships carry things. Explorer ships explore. But this ship, it can be modified. Parts can be moved around. Systems can be rewired. Jake walked over to Lisa's station. The engineering display showed a three-dimensional model of their ship. It did look like a patchwork of different technologies, but when he looked closer, he could see what Lisa meant. The connections between systems aren't optimized for any one function, Lisa continued. But that means they can be optimized for many functions. I've been running simulations. With the right modifications, we could turn this ship into something unique. Unique how? Unique as in nobody in the galaxy has ever seen anything like it. Tyler looked up from his communication station. Sir, we're getting a priority message from Kepler Station. They say there's some kind of emergency in the outer rim. Ships are going missing. What kind of emergency? Unknown. But they're asking for any available vessels to investigate. Jake looked around his bridge. His crew of 20 was made up of humanity's best and brightest. They had volunteered to be the first humans in space. They had left behind families and careers to represent their entire species among the stars, and they had been given the worst ship in the galaxy. Marcus turned in his pilot seat. Captain, I know what you're thinking, but this ship can barely make it to the supply station, let alone investigate missing vessels. Actually, said Lisa slowly, if I'm right about these modifications, maybe we could help. Maybe we could do something that other ships can't. Jake made his decision. Set course for the outer rim. Let's see what humanity can do with the galaxy's junk. The Resilience turned toward the unknown. Its mismatched engines groaned and complained, but they kept running. In the cargo bay, spare parts rattled against bulkheads. The gravity fluctuated between 60 and 80%. But the ship flew forward into the darkness, carrying humanity's hopes and dreams on a vessel that everyone expected to fail. Jake Morrison smiled for the first time in weeks. Maybe it was. Time to prove that there was no such thing as impossible when humans refused to accept limitations. 3 months had passed since the Resilience left Earth. Captain Jake Morrison had grown used to the constant rattling and the smell of burning circuits. His crew had learned to work around the ship's many problems. They were still the joke of the galaxy, but they were a joke that somehow kept flying. The ship was drifting near the edge of the Vega system when Tyler Brooks picked up something unusual on his sensors. Captain, I'm getting a weak distress signal, Tyler said from his communication station. He pressed his headphones closer to his ears. It's very faint. Automated beacon, I think. Jake walked over to look at Tyler's screen. Where's it coming from? About 2 hours away at our current speed, near that nebula. Tyler pointed to the view screen where purple and blue gases swirled in space like cosmic clouds. Signal is breaking up, but it's definitely a distress beacon. Any ships in the area? Negative, sir. We're the only vessel within 3 days' travel. Lisa Chen looked up from her engineering station. Captain, we're low on supplies. We were supposed to dock at Kepler Station yesterday for refueling. How low? We have maybe 6 hours of full power left. After that, we'll need to start shutting down non-essential systems. Jake stared at the nebula on the screen. Standard Coalition protocol was clear. Report the distress signal to proper authorities and continue to their assigned destination. Let ships designed for rescue work handle the rescue. But the nearest Coalition vessel was 3 days away. If someone was dying out there, they would be dead long before help arrived. Marcus, how long to reach that signal? Pilot Marcus Rodriguez checked his navigation display. 2 hours, 15 minutes if we push the engines, but Lisa's right about our power situation. If we go there, we might not have enough fuel to reach Kepler Station afterward. Sir, said Dr. Amanda Hayes from her medical station, if someone needs help, we have to try. That's what humans do. Jake made his decision. Marcus, set course for that distress beacon. Lisa, give me everything we've got. Aye, sir. The Resilience changed direction and headed toward the nebula. The mismatched engines strained as Marcus pushed them harder than usual. Warning lights flashed across the bridge, but the ship held together. 2 hours later, they found the source of the distress signal. There, said Marcus, pointing at the main screen. Small escape pod. Looks badly damaged. The pod was tiny, barely large enough for one person. Its hull was cracked and scorched. One engine was completely gone. The other was leaking some kind of green fluid into space. Tyler, any response to our hails? No, sir. But I'm reading a very weak life sign inside. Whatever's in there is alive, but barely. Jake turned to his medical officer. Amanda, are you ready for an unknown alien patient? As ready as I can be with this medical bay. Half my equipment is designed for species I've never heard of. Lisa, can we dock with that pod? Lisa studied her engineering displays. The pod's docking port is damaged, but I think I can rig something. Give me 20 minutes. While Lisa worked on the docking problem, Tyler tried to learn more about their rescue target. I'm analyzing the pod's design. It's not from any coalition species I recognize. The materials are advanced, but the construction is different. Different how? More organic, like they grew parts of it instead of building them. Lisa's voice came over the intercom from the cargo bay. Captain, I've got the docking tube connected. It's not pretty, but it should hold air pressure. Good work. Amanda, Marcus, you're with me. Tyler, keep monitoring for other ships. The 3 officers made their way to the cargo bay. Lisa had, indeed, rigged a connection between their ship and the damaged pod. It looked like she had used spare parts, emergency sealant, and probably some creative welding. This will hold, right? Jake asked. Probably. Maybe. Don't lean on it too hard. They entered the escape pod through the makeshift airlock. The inside was dark except for a few emergency lights. The air was thin and smelled like flowers mixed with ozone. In the center of the pod, they found her. She was clearly not human. Her skin was pale blue with faint silver patterns that seemed to glow in the dim light. She was small, maybe 5 feet tall, with delicate features and long white hair. Her breathing was shallow and weak. Definitely alive, Amanda said, running a medical scanner over the unconscious alien. But she's in bad shape. Severe dehydration, possible internal injuries, and her body chemistry is unlike anything in my database. Can you treat her? I can. Try. But I'll need to get her to our medical bay and figure out what kind of biology I'm dealing with. They carefully moved the alien girl to the Resilience. Amanda immediately went to work in the medical bay while Jake and Marcus returned to the bridge. Any luck identifying her species? Jake asked Tyler. I've been running her pod's design through our databases. No matches in coalition records. But Captain, I found something else. What? Tyler's face was grim. The pod has blast scoring on the hull. This wasn't an accident. Her ship was attacked. Lisa's voice came over the intercom. Captain, you need to see this. I found something in the pod's computer core. Jake made his way to Lisa's workstation in the cargo bay. She had connected the pod's damaged computer to their systems and was trying to recover data. Most of the memory is corrupted, but I managed to salvage some files. Take a look at this. The screen showed what looked like a star chart, but the symbols were unfamiliar. Red marks indicated several locations throughout the outer rim. I think these are attack sites, Lisa said. Wherever this girl came from, it wasn't an isolated incident. Multiple locations have been hit. Jake studied the display. By who? Unknown. But whoever did this has been busy. These attacks span several months across a wide area. Amanda's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, I need you in medical bay. Our patient is waking up." Jake hurried to the medical bay. The alien girl was conscious, but clearly confused and frightened. Her large eyes were a deep purple color that seemed to shift like liquid. She spoke rapidly in a language that their translation computer couldn't understand. "Easy," Amanda said gently. "You're safe now. We're here to help." The girl looked around frantically, taking in her surroundings. When she saw Jake, she tried to sit up despite Amanda's protests. "Human," she said in heavily accented but understandable English. "You are human?" "Yes. I'm Captain Jake Morrison. You're aboard our ship. We found your escape pod." Relief flooded her face, followed quickly by fear. "They will come. The dark ships. They take everyone. You must run." "Who will come? Who attacked your ship?" Before she could answer, Tyler's urgent voice came over the intercom. "Captain, to the bridge immediately. We have company." Jake looked at the alien girl. Her purple eyes were wide with terror. "The Dominion," she whispered. "They have found me." On the bridge, Tyler was tracking multiple contacts on long-range sensors. "5 ships, Captain. Unknown configuration. They're moving fast and heading straight for us." Jake looked at his crew. They were 2 hours from the nearest Coalition vessel and 6 hours from Kepler Station. Their ship was held together with spare parts and determination. Their fuel was running low, and now they had rescued someone that apparently very dangerous people wanted back. "Marcus, best speed to Kepler Station." "Aye, sir." The Resilience turned and ran toward Coalition space. Behind them, 5 dark shapes, followed like hunting wolves. Jake Morrison realized that his crew had just stumbled into something much bigger than a simple rescue mission. The real question was whether their patched-together ship could outrun whatever was chasing them. The alien girl's name was Kira. She told them this during her second day aboard the Resilience, while Dr. Amanda Hayes checked her recovery progress. Her purple eyes had regained their brightness, and the silver patterns on her blue skin seemed to glow more strongly when she was calm. "Kira, of the Nexari," she said, sitting up carefully in the medical bay bed. "My people are scientists and healers. We study the connections between all living things." Captain Jake Morrison sat in a chair beside her bed. "The ship's chasing us. You called them the Dominion. What do they want?" Kira's face darkened. "They take species they consider useful. Nexari are good at biotechnology and energy systems. They captured my research station 3 weeks ago. Everyone I knew, my family, my teachers, all taken to work in their factories." "How did you escape?" "I was in the outer lab when they attacked. I had time to grab the research data and reach. An escape pod." She touched a small device on her wrist that glowed with the same silver light as her skin markings. "All our knowledge about energy manipulation and organic technology is in here." Jake leaned forward. "Is that why they're chasing you?" "Yes. And because I can identify the Coalition members who helped them." The words hit Jake like cold water. "Coalition members are working with slavers?" 3 species on the Coalition Council have been secretly supplying the Dominion with information about which systems to attack. They get paid in rare minerals. "The Dominion gets new slaves. The Coalition pretends not to notice." Jake stood up and began pacing. His crew had joined the galaxy thinking they were becoming part of something noble. Instead, they had discovered corruption at the highest levels. "We have to report this to Coalition Command." Kira shook her head sadly. "Who will you report it to? How do you know which officials can be trusted? The Dominion has been planning this for years. Their influence reaches everywhere." Amanda finished her medical scan and looked at the results. "Kira, your recovery is remarkable. Most species would need weeks to heal from injuries like yours. Nexari heal quickly when we feel safe. Your ship, it feels different from other vessels I have been on, more alive somehow." Jake thought about that. The Resilience did feel different. Maybe it was because every system required constant attention from his crew. Nothing ran automatically. Every day brought new problems that required creative solutions. Speaking of the ship, Jake said, we need to talk about our situation. We're still being followed. 5 Dominion vessels are staying just outside sensor range. They're waiting for something. They wait for us to reach Coalition space, Kira explained. Then they will file legal papers claiming I am stolen property. Coalition law will require you to return me to them. That's insane. That is politics. The Dominion has legal rights to anything they capture in non-coalition space. My escape pod was found outside protected boundaries. Jake felt anger building in his chest. So they can chase you across the galaxy, and when we reach safety, the law will hand you back to them? Unless... Kira looked thoughtful. Captain, may I see your ship's engineering systems? Why? I may be able to help. Nexari biotechnology could work with your adaptive systems. If Engineer Chen agrees, we might create modifications that could help us escape. An hour later, Jake found Lisa Chen and Kira working together in the main engineering section. Tools and alien components were scattered across every surface. Kira's wrist device projected holographic displays that showed the Resilience's internal systems in ways Jake had never seen before. Captain, you need to see this, Lisa said without looking up from her work. Kira's people understand energy, flow in living systems, but our ship's design is so mixed up that it actually mimics biological patterns. What does that mean? Kira answered while adjusting something inside an open wall panel. Your ship has redundant pathways like a living body. When one system fails, energy finds new routes. Most ships cannot do this because they are built too efficiently. Our ship being badly designed is actually an advantage? Not badly designed, Lisa corrected. Flexibly designed. Kira has shown me how to encourage the energy flows instead of controlling them. Watch this. Lisa activated a sequence on her control panel. The lights throughout engineering dimmed for a moment, then brightened to twice their normal intensity. The constant background hum of the ship changed tone, becoming deeper and somehow more solid. The power output just increased by 30%, Lisa said with excitement. And we're using the same amount of fuel. Jake stared at the readings. How is that possible? Living systems don't waste energy, Kira explained. They adapt and optimize constantly. I have taught your ship to do the same thing. Over the next few days, Jake spent more time in engineering watching Lisa and Kira work together. The two women had developed an amazing partnership. Lisa understood human technology and creative problem solving. Kira understood energy patterns and biological systems. Together, they were transforming the Resilience into something unique. Jake found himself drawn to Kira's way of thinking, where humans saw individual components. She saw connections. Where they planned solutions, she encouraged adaptation. Her approach was different from anything he had learned in his military training. Your people, Jake asked during a quiet moment, while they worked. Do they have families like humans? Yes and no, Kira replied, pausing in her work on a power coupling. Nexari form bonds based on shared understanding rather than just biology. When two people truly understand each other, they become connected in ways that go beyond physical attraction. That sounds complicated. Kira smiled, and Jake noticed that her silver markings brightened when she was happy. Not complicated, natural. When you find someone who sees the universe the way you do, the connection happens by itself. Their eyes met across the engineering console. Jake felt something he had not expected when he decided to rescue a stranger. From a damaged escape pod, he was beginning to understand what Kira meant about connections. Captain, Tyler's voice came over the intercom. You're needed on the bridge. The Dominion ships are moving. Jake reluctantly left engineering and returned to the bridge. The 5 dark vessels were still following them, but now they were closing distance rapidly. They know we're only 6 hours from Coalition space, Marcus said from the pilot station. I think they're going to attack before we reach safety. Can we outrun them? Not in normal space, but Captain, Lisa, and Kira have been working on something. They want to test a new engine modification. Jake activated the intercom. Lisa, how ready are those modifications? Ready enough, came Lisa's voice. But Captain, we've never tested this configuration at full power. I can't guarantee what will happen. Tyler looked up from his sensors. Sir, the Dominion ships are powering weapons. Jake looked around his bridge. His crew of 20 had volunteered to represent humanity among the stars. They had been given the worst ship in the galaxy as a cruel joke. Now they were facing trained military vessels with weapons designed for war. But they had something the Dominion did not expect. They had human ingenuity combined with Nexari biotechnology. They had a ship that could adapt and change. Most importantly, they had each other. Lisa, give me everything you've got. Let's see what this ship can really do. Aye, sir. Activating adaptive engine systems now. The resilience began to change. Jake could feel it in the deck plates beneath his feet. The ship was waking up, stretching, finding new ways to move through space. Behind them, the Dominion vessels opened fire. The real test was about to begin. The first Dominion energy blast missed the resilience by less than 50 meters. Captain Jake Morrison felt the ship shudder as the near miss disrupted their shields. On the main screen, 5 dark vessels were closing fast, their weapons charging. For another volley. Lisa, I need those modifications now, Jake called out. Activating adaptive systems, came Lisa Chen's voice from engineering. Hold on to something. The resilience suddenly moved like nothing Jake had ever experienced. Instead of the usual straight-line acceleration, the ship seemed to flow through space like a living creature. It twisted and curved around the incoming weapons fire with movements that should have been impossible for any vessel. How are we doing that? Asked pilot Marcus Rodriguez, staring at his control displays in confusion. The ship is making its own decisions about movement, Kira explained from her position beside Jake's command chair. Nexari biotechnology teaches systems to respond to threats automatically, like how your body pulls your hand away from fire without thinking. Another wave of Dominion fire swept through space where the resilience had been a moment before. But the ship was no longer there. It had already flowed to a new position, moving in patterns that no targeting computer could predict. Tyler, open a channel to the lead Dominion vessel, Jake ordered. Channel open, sir. This is Captain Morrison of the Earth ship Resilience. You are firing on a coalition rescue vessel. Stand down immediately. The response came in a cold, mechanical voice. Earth vessel, you carry stolen Dominion property. Return the Nexari female, and we will allow you to leave. The person aboard our ship is a refugee seeking protection. We will not surrender anyone to slavers. Then you will be destroyed. The lead Dominion ship fired its main weapon, a massive red beam that could cut through most starship hulls like paper. But the resilience simply wasn't there when the beam arrived. The ship had somehow sensed the incoming attack and moved away. Before the weapon even fired. Impossible, Tyler said, monitoring the enemy communications. They're saying their targeting computers can't lock onto us. Jake turned to Kira. How long can we keep this up? As long as the ship learns faster than they adapt. But Captain, we cannot just run forever. My people are still prisoners. Others will be captured if the Dominion is not stopped. What are you suggesting? Fight back. Show them that their victims can become their enemies. Jake had been thinking the same thing. The Resilience might not be a warship, but it was certainly not helpless anymore. Lisa, what kind of offensive capabilities do we have? More than you might think, Lisa's voice came over the intercom. The weapon systems were never properly integrated, but Kira and I have been working on that. We can't match their firepower, but we can be very unpredictable. Do it. The Resilience suddenly stopped its evasive movements and turned toward the nearest Dominion vessel. Jake could feel the ship gathering energy like a predator preparing to strike. The main view screen focused on the enemy ship's hull, showing armor plating and weapon ports. Firing! Lisa announced. What came from the Resilience was not the usual single beam or projectile. Instead, multiple small energy pulses shot out in seemingly random directions. Most missed the target completely, but a few found gaps in the enemy armor and penetrated deep into the ship's interior. The Dominion vessel suddenly lost power to its engines and began drifting helplessly. "Direct hit on their power core," Tyler reported with amazement. "How did you target something we couldn't even see?" "Nexari energy sense," Kira explained. "Every ship has weak points where energy flows are concentrated. Hit those points, and even the strongest vessel becomes helpless." The other 4 Dominion ships responded with concentrated fire, but the Resilience was already moving again. It flowed between their attacks like water flowing around rocks. Jake watched his crew work with growing pride. Marcus had learned to work with the ship's adaptive movement instead of fighting it. Tyler was tracking enemy communications and predicting their tactics. Amanda was monitoring the health of both the ship and crew as they adapted to rapid maneuvers. Another. "Target locked," Lisa announced. "Fire when ready." The second Dominion ship lost its weapon systems as precisely aimed energy pulses found their ammunition storage. Small explosions rippled across its hull as the vessel became defensively useless. "Sir," Tyler said with excitement, "I'm picking up other signals. Coalition ships are responding to our distress call." "How many and how far?" "3 vessels, about 2 hours away. But, Captain, there's something else. I'm getting signals from ships that aren't showing up on sensors. Hidden ships." Jake frowned. "Hidden how?" Kira's face went pale. "Cloaked vessels. The Dominion must have brought reinforcements." As if summoned by her words, 6 more ships suddenly appeared around them. They had been invisible until now, waiting for the perfect moment to attack. The Resilience was now surrounded by 10 enemy vessels. "Well," Marcus said calmly, "this complicates things." Jake looked at the tactical display. Even with their new, adaptive abilities, facing 10 ships was probably impossible. But his crew had already done several impossible things in the past few days. "Lisa, can the ship handle a full-power defensive pattern?" "It can try. But Jake, we'll be burning through our fuel reserves fast." "Do it. Tyler, send our location and all data about Dominion activities to every Coalition ship within range. If we don't make it out of this, at least the information will survive." "Message sent, sir." The Resilience began moving in ways that seemed to defy physics. It spun and twisted through 3-dimensional space, while its weapons sought targets of opportunity. Energy beams crossed all around them as 10 ships tried to destroy one. But the one ship moved like it was alive, anticipating every attack. Jake realized something amazing was happening. His crew was no longer operating their ship. They were partnering with it. The Resilience had become something new, a hybrid of human ingenuity and Nexari biotechnology that was greater than the sum of its parts. "Target acquired," Lisa called out. "Fire." A 3rd Dominion ship lost its main engines, then a 4th lost its navigation systems. The remaining vessels began to spread out, trying to surround the Resilience from multiple directions. "They're adapting to our tactics," Kira observed. "Then we adapt faster," Jake replied. He looked around his bridge. Tyler was coordinating with incoming Coalition forces. Marcus was flying their ship through impossible maneuvers. Kira was providing tactical advice based on Nexari understanding of energy systems. And somewhere in engineering, Lisa was probably performing miracles with spare parts and determination. 6 months ago, Jake had been given command of humanity's first starship. It was supposed to be their entry into galactic civilization. Instead, it had become their weapon against injustice. "Captain," Tyler announced, "Coalition ships will arrive in 40 minutes. Then we hold them off for 40 minutes. The Resilience danced through space, fighting impossible odds with creativity and courage. Jake Morrison realized that his crew was no longer the joke of the galaxy. They had become something much more dangerous. They had become hope. 6 weeks after the first battle with the Dominion, the Resilience was no longer alone. Captain Jake Morrison stood on his bridge looking at a display that showed 17 ships flying in formation around them. Each vessel was different, representing species that had been freed from Dominion slavery or had joined their cause voluntarily. "Captain," Communications Specialist Tyler Brooks reported, "we're getting a message from the merchant vessel New Dawn. Captain Sarah Williams says her cargo of medical supplies is ready for transfer to the refugee ships." "Good. What about the Kepler fighters?" Squadron Leader Davis reports all 6 ships are ready for patrol duty. The Arcturus Heavy Transport is also standing by with food supplies. Jake smiled. What had started as a simple rescue mission had grown into something much larger. Word had spread through underground networks about a mysterious human ship that freed slaves and vanished like smoke. Other captains had sought them out, wanting to join the fight against the Dominion. "Sir," said pilot Marcus Rodriguez, "incoming transmission from Coalition Command. Put it through." Admiral Peterson's face appeared on the main screen. He looked tired and frustrated. "Captain Morrison, you are ordered to return to Coalition space immediately. Your unauthorized activities are creating diplomatic problems." "What kind of diplomatic problems, Admiral?" "The Dominion has filed formal complaints. They claim you are stealing their property and disrupting legal commerce. 3 Coalition Council members are demanding your arrest." Jake exchanged a look with Kira, who was standing beside his command chair. In the weeks since their first battle, their partnership had grown both professionally and personally. She understood his tactical thinking, while he had learned to see connections the way Nexari did. "Admiral, we have evidence that Coalition Council members are taking bribes from the Dominion. The property they're talking about consists of sentient beings who were kidnapped from their homes." "That's a very serious accusation, Captain. Do you have proof?" Kira stepped forward. "Admiral, I am Kira of the Nexari. My people documented the corruption for months before our research station was attacked. The data is available for examination." Admiral Peterson's expression changed. "Ms. Kira, the Dominion has legal claims on you. Coalition law requires protection for refugees," Jake interrupted. "And it definitely requires investigation of slavery and corruption charges. Captain Morrison, you have 48 hours to return to Coalition space. That's an order." The transmission ended. Jake looked around his bridge. His crew had heard everything. They knew that returning to Coalition space might mean the end of their mission and probably imprisonment for everyone involved. "So," Dr. Amanda Hayes said from her medical station, "I guess we're officially outlaws now." "Looks that way," Jake replied. "Anyone who wants to leave can take a shuttle to one of the other ships. No questions asked." Nobody moved. Tyler spoke for all of them. "Sir, we didn't come this far just to give up when things get difficult. Then we continue the mission. But from now on, we're on our own." Over the next 2 weeks, Jake's small fleet continued rescuing Dominion prisoners and disrupting slave operations. The Resilience had become the flagship of an unlikely alliance. Engineer Lisa Chen had shared her modification techniques with other ships, creating a force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Each vessel in their fleet was unique. The merchant ships used adaptive cargo systems that could transform into weapons platforms. The fighters had learned to work together like a living organism. Even the transport vessels could defend themselves with creative engineering solutions, but their growing success had attracted dangerous attention. "Captain," Tyler announced, "long-range sensors are detecting a massive Dominion fleet approaching. 20 ships, including their newest dreadnought." Jake studied the tactical display. The enemy force was led by Commander Nash Kellerman, the Dominion's most experienced military leader. Intelligence reports said he had never lost a battle and considered the human rebels a personal insult. "How long until they reach us?" "6 hours, sir." Jake activated fleet communications. "All ships, this is Captain Morrison. We have a large enemy force incoming. Any vessel that wishes to withdraw should do so now." The responses came quickly from all 17 ships. Nobody was leaving. "Well," Marcus said, "I guess we're committed." Kira moved closer to Jake's command. "Chair." "Captain, this will be different from our previous battles. Commander Kellerman is known for studying his enemies carefully. He will have countermeasures for our adaptive tactics. Then we'll have to adapt faster than he can counter." 6 hours later, the two fleets faced each other in the empty space between star systems. The Dominion formation was perfect military, precision. 20 dark ships arranged in optimal attack formation with overlapping fields of fire. Their dreadnought was twice the size of any other vessel present. Jake's fleet looked like a collection of refugees and misfits, which was exactly what they were. "Captain Morrison," came Commander Kellerman's voice over the communication system, "you have caused considerable inconvenience. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated as prisoners of war instead of pirates." "Commander Kellerman," Jake replied, "we offer you the same terms." "Amusing. You face the finest fleet in Dominion, service with a collection of cargo ships and obsolete fighters. We face you with something you don't understand, Commander. We face you with hope." The battle began when Commander Kellerman ordered his ships to open fire. But instead of the coordinated response he expected, Jake's fleet did something unprecedented. They moved as one organism. Fighters flowed around larger ships like protective cells. Cargo vessels shifted their formations to provide cover for damaged allies. The Resilience moved through the center of it all, coordinating the defense while striking at opportunities. The Dominion fleet had superior weapons and armor, but Jake's ships fought like a living entity that could adapt to any attack. When the enemy focused on the fighters, the cargo ships became attackers. When they targeted the large vessels, the fighters struck vulnerable points. "Impossible," came Kellerman's voice over an open channel. "How are they coordinating without detectable communications?" Kira smiled beside Jake's chair. "Nexari biotechnology creates connections that cannot be jammed or intercepted. Your fleet fights like separate ships. Ours fights like organs in a body." For the first time in his career, Commander Kellerman was facing an enemy that learned faster than he could adapt. His tactical advantages meant nothing against opponents who created new strategies in real time. "Sir," Tyler reported, 3 enemy ships are withdrawing. Their formation is breaking apart." Jake watched as the Dominion fleet began to retreat. The mighty dreadnought that had never been defeated was running from a collection of modified cargo, ships, and refugee vessels. "Let them go," Jake ordered. "We've made our point." As the enemy ships disappeared into hyperspace, Jake realized something important had happened. They had not just won a battle. They had proven that the strong could not always defeat the determined. That adaptation could overcome any advantage. That hope was more powerful than fear. "Captain," Kira said softly, "we did something today that will change everything." Jake nodded. The galaxy would never again underestimate the power of cooperation, creativity, and the refusal to accept defeat. The weapon they had created was not the ship or the fleet. It was the idea that anything was possible when people refused to give up. 1 year later, Captain Jake Morrison stood in the observation deck of Kepler Station, watching the most unusual wedding ceremony in galactic history. Through the large windows, he could see hundreds of ships from dozens of species gathered in space around the station. They had come to witness something that many thought impossible. "Are you ready for this?" asked Dr. Amanda Hayes, adjusting Jake's formal uniform. "I've been ready since the day we found her escape pod," Jake replied. In the main ceremonial hall, representatives from 43 different species had gathered. The ceremony would follow both human and Nexari traditions, symbolizing the union of two peoples who had found strength in their differences. Kira entered wearing a dress that seemed to be made of flowing starlight. Her blue skin glowed with silver, patterns that pulsed gently with her heartbeat. She was no longer the frightened refugee they had rescued. She had become a leader, a symbol of hope for enslaved peoples throughout the galaxy. "Jake Morrison," she said, taking his hands. You saved my life when you found my escape pod. But more than that, you showed me that different species can create something beautiful together. Kira of the Nexari, Jake replied. You taught me that strength comes not from weapons or armor, but from connections between people who care about each other. The ceremony was conducted by Ambassador Richards, humanity's first official representative to the Galactic Coalition, and Elder Vash of the Nexari Council. Together, they spoke words in both languages about unity, hope, and the bonds that could bridge any difference. As they exchanged vows, Jake thought about everything that had led to this moment. The Resilience had started as the worst ship in the galaxy, a collection of mismatched parts that nobody expected to work. Now it was the flagship of the Liberation Fleet, a force that had freed thousands of enslaved beings and changed the balance of power in 3 sectors. By the authority of the Galactic Coalition and the blessing of the Nexari Council, Ambassador Richards announced, I pronounce you partners in life and love. The celebration that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Music from dozens of worlds played simultaneously, creating harmonies that no single species could have imagined. Foods from across the galaxy were shared freely. Children of various species played together while their parents discussed trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. Engineer Lisa Chen found Jake during the reception. Captain, I wanted to give you an update on the fleet modifications. We now have 67 ships using adaptive technology. The Coalition has officially requested technical specifications for their own shipyards. Are we sharing the information? Of course. The whole point was to help people defend themselves. Tyler. Brooks joined them carrying a communication pad. Sir, we've received requests from 12 more species asking to join the Liberation Fleet. Also, the Coalition Council has officially censured the 3 members who were taking Dominion bribes. 2 of them have resigned. What about the Dominion itself? Commander Kellerman has been reassigned to defensive duties only. Word is spreading that attacking civilian targets brings consequences. Slave raids have dropped by 60% in the Outer Rim. Jake smiled. When he had first taken command of the Resilience, his mission was simple: represent humanity among the stars. He had never imagined that it would lead to changing how the entire galaxy thought about justice and cooperation. Kira appeared at his side, her silver markings bright with happiness. What are you thinking about, husband? About how none of this was planned. We were just trying to do the right thing. Perhaps that is why it worked. When people act from the heart instead of following rules, amazing things become possible. Marcus Rodriguez approached with a data pad showing star charts. Captain, Mrs. Morrison, I hate to interrupt, but we have a situation. Long-range scouts have detected distress signals from the Andromeda sector. Unknown species under attack by what appears to be an automated fleet. Jake and Kira exchanged looks. The Andromeda sector was 3 months' travel beyond Coalition space. It would mean leaving the relative safety of known systems and venturing into completely unexplored territory. How many ships are we talking about? Jake asked. At least 50 automated vessels, possibly more. They appear to be systematically destroying any ships they encounter. And the species calling for help? Unknown. Their technology is different from anything in our databases. Jake looked around the reception hall. His crew was there, along with representatives from all the species they had helped free. The Liberation Fleet had grown from one patched-together ship to a force that could challenge any threat, but more importantly, they had proven that cooperation could overcome any obstacle, that different species working together could accomplish things that none could achieve alone. Marcus, how soon can we be ready to depart? The Resilience can be underway in 6 hours. The rest of the fleet could follow within a day. Kira squeezed Jake's hand. A new mission on our wedding day? Are you complaining, Mrs. Morrison? Never, Captain Morrison. There are always more people who need help. Jake addressed the gathering. Friends, we have received a call for help from the Andromeda sector. Unknown species are under attack by automated forces. The Liberation Fleet will be departing to investigate. A cheer went up from the assembled crowd. Species that had been enemies for centuries were now volunteering to risk their lives for strangers they had never met. Admiral Peterson, who had traveled from Earth for the wedding, approached Jake privately. "Captain, the Coalition Council has officially authorized your mission to Andromeda. They're also providing supply ships and technical support." "And humanity? Earth is proud of what you've accomplished out here. The shipyards are already building new vessels using your adaptive design principles. We're calling them Morrison-class ships." Jake felt a surge of pride. Humanity had been given the worst ship in the galaxy as a joke. Instead, they had turned it into proof that there was no such thing as impossible when people refused to accept limitations. 6 hours later, the Resilience led a fleet of over 100 ships toward the edge of known space. The wedding reception had become a launch ceremony as species that had never worked together joined forces to help strangers in need. "Course laid in for the Andromeda sector," Marcus reported from the pilot station. "All ships report ready," Tyler added. "Fleet is showing full adaptive linkage," Lisa announced from engineering. "We're operating as a unified organism." Jake settled into his command chair with Kira beside him. Through the view screen, stars stretched to infinity. Somewhere out there, unknown people needed help, and the Liberation Fleet was going to provide it. "Take us out, Marcus." As the fleet jumped to hyperspace, Jake reflected on the journey that had brought them here. They had started with nothing but determination and a ship held together by hope. They had discovered that love could bridge any gap between species. They had proven that cooperation was stronger than conquest. Most importantly, they had learned that being given the worst of everything was sometimes the best possible gift. It forced you to be creative. It made you appreciate what you had. It taught you that true strength came not from what you possessed, but from what you were willing to share. The Resilience flew toward new horizons, carrying humanity's greatest weapons: ingenuity, compassion, and the absolute refusal to abandon anyone who needed help. Behind them, the galaxy was a little brighter. Ahead of them, new challenges waited. Jake Morrison smiled and reached for his wife's hand. Whatever came next, they would face it together.